Hey everyone, how's it going? And welcome to another stream. Looks like our webcam is having webcaming issues. See if I can fix that. Which is this one? How about which is this one? Huh. Well, that's an issue. Not exactly sure why it's not finding the webcam, but let's go ahead, switch over to the desktop view. Because I can't explain why it's doing one thing or the other. Yeah. Strange. Strange. We won't dwell on it. All right, so how's it going, everyone? Hopefully you're doing well. And we're going to get started on our work on Elixir Phoenix project. So let me go ahead and open up Visual Studio Code. And let's go ahead and open up one of these, a new Streamlog journal thing. So we're continuing our project working on the string closed captioner for moving over to Elixir. Lately, been working on the front end aspect of things. And today we'll focus on a portion of the JavaScript where we're working on the OBS Websocket Integration. So, and I'll explain what exactly that is in a second. Enable disable interactions for services. I think we have that good. But we also have one we're working on. Complete OBS WebSocket controls with UI updates or indicators. So that's what we're working on. Ideally, I want to try to get this done by Sunday. So let's work on that. So the last few nights I have spent a little time taking the JS from the old project that controlled OBS WebSocket and moving it over to the current project. Most of the code can remain the same since it's just an interface with interface for controlling OBS, but there are some small UI related sections of the code we need to dial in. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So we have our development server up and running, or our development box up and running. And now let's go ahead and get the server, web server up and running. So while this takes some time to load up and get the port forwarding and everything set up, what was I talking about with OBS WebSocket? So first of all, OBS is the broadcasting software, open broadcasting software is what OBS is. And it's a tool that many streamers and content creators use to capture their desktops, stream stuff, and transitions and stuff like that. And it's what I'm currently using. There is a plugin for OBS that opens up a WebSocket port. So you can connect, listen to events coming from OBS, but also send events to OBS. And I utilize that for string closed caption right now to send captions directly to OBS so that they are encoded directly into the video, which allows native closed captioning and also captioning displayed on the VODs on Twitch. So that's what I'm currently working on. It doesn't require any backend coding because it completely connects to the client side running OBS on someone's computer. So we just have to work on the JavaScript for it. Let's see if we can connect to our server finally. Usually this requires just a couple clicks into it to kind of like push the plumbing, so to speak. There we go. Now things are loading. There we go. We can see I can see the change happening in the corner. And there we are. So I'm already logged in. And we have the dashboard page. So right now, here is the OBS WebSocket integration. So again, we are using, or I am using, Stimulus.js to drive the UI for this. So it just hook into the existing JavaScript or HTML, doing some event-driven stuff. And the OBS controller, which kind of grapples onto the HTML based off the data attributes, is already kind of listening to certain things. So for the OBS WebSocket, there is a button that gets clicked that starts it. Let's go find that button. So here is the section for the OBS WebSocket. And the idea behind this is that a user can control where they want their captions to go to. Whether it's Twitch, Zoom, OBS WebSocket, all three at the same time. They can mix and match, pick and choose where they want things to go. So we're working on this section right here so that they can turn it on, connect to OBS, and send captions that way, along with the sending it to Twitch. So here is the UI. Here is the indicator that we're using the OBS controller. So this initializes this controller to hook inside the context, and the context being everything inside this div that's marked data controller. We have a couple targets that we're listening to, a couple HTML elements that we can target to add classes, add content to it. And the switch has a data binding on it too that allows us to click on and off. So what this click does, it forwards it over to the OBS controller, connect to OBS, and does this. So I have this roughly working right now. Let me go ahead and open up this. Local. I have some debug stuff I can use. So I'm using a library for debugging, hoping that it's going to work this time and actually display. Local storage. I think this is the way we set the debug library. Let me just double, triple, quadruple check. So it's just a nice library to debug to an output, but not always show it, like turn it on via flags, wildcards. They can scope and have certain debug messages show up and others not to. We can put it in a quote unquote debug mode. So there's like local storage, debug, and then whatever you want to match against. So we're over here. Let's try to do a catch-all and see if that's going to work. We get a message that it's connected. And let me check the debug. I know that connected is coming via console log. Look right here for connected. But we don't get any of these debug messages. If I were to put this here, try to do this again. It doesn't show up. Let me tweak this. See if this will work. Hey, I saw this yesterday and I was wondering why the heck. Base. Not working in the browser. I'm not getting an error. We're not getting, yeah, we're not getting any errors. It's just not showing up. Which is very sad, very sad. The OBS controller. Let's be very explicit with this. Actually, let's just double check that we're using the debugger library right. Oh, I forgot one thing. Let's get some tunes in. Sliding time, we can do require debug. I wonder if it's because it doesn't work without doing require. It doesn't support the node module syntax. That's easy to find out by doing an experiment. Like this. Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm not going to linger on it. Let's just focus on the task at hand and we'll just do console logs. So as we're playing with this, you kind of see that I toggle this on and we get connected. Connected is this state is when we get a confirmed connected state coming in from when enable connection doesn't return an error. I guess is the reason we expect. So we can improve on this by saying If it returns true, yeah, let's do it outside the is connected. Well, so if it is connected, we update the state button to true. Like so. I'm going to replace all of these debug references to be console logs, since we are having, actually, let's not replace it with console log. Let's just define a method called debug. So replace that, the method called debug that just is console log, like that. Okay. Let's see if this is going to work. Working. Cool. I was hoping that I can get some of these other debug messages coming in, but I don't. So let's test this out. We have a couple debug messages coming in. I believe we're listening to certain events coming in to our JavaScript interface. So what I'm going to do is let's turn this on, and I'm going to try transitioning to a different scene. And it works. So we get the events for a scene transition. The camera's broken right now, so we don't see the camera, but all these different layouts are the layouts for repositioning the camera. So that's actually really convenient and really cool. Let me take a moment to take a drink. Now we actually have to see if sending captions to, now we have to actually get captions to go out, be sent via OBS WebSocket. That needs to happen. So in the Captions Controller, the Captions Controller is in charge of receiving the messages. It manages this section right here. Right now, it receives the captions. We turn them on. It receives the captions coming in, and then it presently sends those out. It publishes them to the back end. I'm wondering if it should no longer publish it out to the back end here. Actually, it still should. Never mind. The thing we need to do is we also get the data coming back in the back end and acknowledgement, but with the captions going through profanity filtering and a couple other pipelines that could theoretically exist. And we use that to display that on the front end. So we actually show the information that we're sending to Twitch on the dashboard, which is what we weren't doing before. So I want to take this, receiving this acknowledgement, and I want to make everyone else aware of this. And I have an idea. I want to communicate this data that gets received back for display captions, and I want to communicate that to the other JavaScript stimulus controllers. We might have a mechanism for that. I am using a library called Stimulus Use that helps extend Stimulus.js with a couple other nice little bits of code to make using Stimulus.js even better. There's interaction ones in here about like detecting, clicking inside, outside, resizing. Text on the targets are added or removed from the controller scope, or their contents change. Use visibility, window size, optimizations, throttling. Transitions. But this is the one I was curious about. So we're using this application controller, but there's also this use dispatch mixin. Adds a dispatch helper function. Custom events, you communicate between different controllers. That's what I'm interested in. Use application might contain that already. Is a supercharged stimulus controller. You can set all your stimulus controls with this from this one and access few handy functions everywhere. Yeah, there's dispatch right there. So if we dispatch hello, we get it's an event from the greetings controller, the hello event, the other stimulus controllers. So returns the value of the meta attributes. How do we receive an event? Example, build a cart counter for dispatch helper. So here's our UI. We have an action for adding an item that calls item controller add action. Is this right here? This dispatches add with metadata quantity 1. Over here in the cart controller, what are we listening to that event somehow? Here you go, data action, refresh total. Okay, so we can listen to an action via the data attribute bindings and have it call a specific function within our stimulus controller. So let's try that. So on the OBS data controller, we're going to listen for captions. and message, I guess. Payload. We'll call it payload. And in here, in our OBS controller, what we're going to do is OBS on caption received. Changing the name just a little bit, pluralizing it on captions received. So now it's binding so that if it receives when a captions payload event is triggered, the stimulus controller, OBS, it will call on captions received function in there. Payload's going to be slightly different, I believe. So now all I have to do is emit that event out. So this dispatch that payload the captions. Okay. Let's see if that just works. So ideally, I send out payload. Over here, we're listening for the captions controller, captions payload, and it calls this function on OBS controller, captions received, which will then receive the payload will display. Let's try it out. Let's turn this on and make sure we are listening to the proper microphone, but it looks like we do have an error happening here. The captions controller is complaining that this.dispatch doesn't exist. Let me make sure to do a hard refresh. Because the hot reloading might not be finding things properly. I guess I can leave that off first. I just don't want to see errors. Okay. So I am getting an error. This controller should be extending the base controller, which again, I took a look over here, extends use application. This. So let's just quickly take a look and make sure that we have the correct this context in here. What is this? We have plenty of things in here. But one of the things we don't have in here is a dispatch. Let's see how we can effectively use this. So the base controller doesn't seem to be working. So let me go ahead and try manually applying it to our base controller. Use dispatch. I'm going to do a hard reload. All right. So let's turn this on, see what happens. So again, it fails. Let's try using this on the Captions Controller directly. So from stimulus use, going to attempt to use dispatch. So that in our controller, we bind use dispatch to this, like it explains here in the docs. So I would then hopefully have everything I need. Let's see. So we're going to go ahead and there we go. So, oh, we actually have dispatch now. So applying it to our superclass. Let's try this. Maybe we're just not, maybe things are just not set up properly. Because we're overriding the connect. So base controller. Let me look at the base controller idea. Okay. Let's get rid of this concept of a base controller then. Let's reconfigure how we've set this up. We're not deep down the rabbit hole just yet with the setup of how things should go. So for each one of our projects, we import in that. And we extend application. instead. Let's do that for the caption one also. Get rid of that. There. Our drop down controller is the exact same thing too. There. That should hopefully have me all set up just right. Click on that, and we should eventually hit this, and I should have a dispatch there. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So we have captions being displayed right there. So that's great. And now I want to have captions. Now I need to make sure that we're receiving that event where I expect it to get it. So OBS Controller should be called with, I would hope it is, yes, captions received. We see the Phoenix replied. I am not seeing captions received yet. Let's go ahead and get rid of this console log because it's a little too chatty. A little too chatty. All right. Let's start this up and see what happens. So I am currently not receiving any events coming in. No console logs from our payload event. So what is the documentation say about the dispatch? Here's an example of the controller, item controller. Item controller. Section add. Let's see if we got this dialed in. So it's supposed to be data action. Captions. The message, the event is payload. And the target of said event is captions on received. Unless we misspelled that whole thing. Let's find out. We turn this on again. And I am not seeing any messages come through. Let me look at the other documentation. Oh, give me a second here. Getting a call. So BRB. Alrighty then. The Be Right Back does not show up with yeah, against a white background. Let me see if I can add. Does that look better? Slightly. Let's make it like an off-white color or something. Be like a nice. There we go. There we go. That's a little bit better. Classier too. I like it. Oop. All right. So, we were currently looking into why the heckums is the why is there no events being dispatched? So let's check the documentation for use dispatch. So the element prefix, whether the event should bubble, whether the event is cancelable, whether the log debug information. Options. So we can tell it to debug information if we manually set the use dispatch. If not, it's just event detail and details. Once the use dispatch mixin is applied to controller, has to do this dispatch function. Available, you may use to emit custom events. The bubbling events. The emitted event sent by the dispatch function will bubbled up the DOM tree. Therefore, all parent elements can listen to it directly. If both are at the same level, or if the receiver controller is even nested within the controller, you should listen to the event with the at window to catch it. Okay, let's see what the structure is. So here is the controller. Where is, and then here's the OBS controller. So they are siblings. So it looks like I'll have to specify that I need to listen to the at window. If I'm going to hook into this. Like so. Let's see if that does a trick. All right. So I click it, and do we get anything back? No. Alrighty then. Let's look at more of the example. If both events are the same level or the receiver controller is even nested within the controller, you should listen to the event at window to catch it. So the emitter is this event that's emitting it. And then the receiver is the emitter, the event that is emitting it, whatever it is, and then at window arrow. Oh, hold on. I have the at window in the wrong spot. At window. All right. Let's see. Click it. Yes. It's working. Oh, nice. We're getting the event. We're not seeing any data, which is fine. We're probably just not sending over things 100% properly. So let's see. We get captions. We dispatch this and this. Hey, Build Argus. Stopping by. So I was expecting to receive some data. Let's just print out what the data is. Let's do that. So click it to start and see what happens. All right, there we go. We have our custom event. And our custom event has details in it. And there's our details. So we get details. And in those details, we have two keys in here. This is looking awfully similar to what we had before. Yep, very, very, very similar. All right, let's toggle that on. Oh, cannot read property interim of undefined. Interesting. Try this again. Maybe I just have the data wrong. Waiting for this to refresh. Click the button. And we see absolutely nothing. Okay, so destructuring this is not good. Let's just go back to seeing what our data looks like again. Because I'm pretty sure this is probably following JavaScript custom event like structure. But let's just log out what it looks like. So we have this custom event. We have detail, not details. Detail. And then in our detail, we have our final and interim. And this is all stuff that's this is what's the server's processing. Let's try this again. Data is not defined, and that's because our console log. Which is fine. Everything's fine. No need to panic. Okay. Click the button. See the magic happen. There we go. So we're now receiving the events from the other stimulus controller. So one stimulus controller just is in charge of managing the captions. It sends it to the backend. It receives an acknowledgement with the data from the backend. And then it proceeds to emit out the captions so that we can consume it elsewhere. And that's what we're seeing here. What this will try to do is this will try to send the information to OBS with doing some formatting specific to the captioning, the way the captioning is displayed on Twitch. So there's a lot of there's a lot of code in here that I probably need to clean up eventually. But let's just get it to work. So right now it's not sending any captions to OBS because we're not connected. Let's try connecting. Turn that on and see what happens. So hopefully I get captions, and there we go. I can see it on stream right now. I have captions being displayed on my stream at this very moment by turning that on. And then I should be able to just click this and turn this off. This, I'm keeping the, where's the party sound effect? Let's do this one. Also this. But it works. And then we turn this back on. And it is on. It is on. Not coming through the stream. Let me see. Let's see. Oh, that's why. Woohoo! There we go. For whatever reason, it was on monitor only. Let's see. The music's really soft. There, I toggled things. If that doesn't work, woohoo! I don't know what will. But at least you can hear my voice. That's an upside. I don't know. Things are weird with the computer today because the webcam wasn't working either. Heard the woohoo? Awesome. Yeah. Nice. So the UI work and stuff like that is slowly getting dialed in. So basically I just did the OBS WebSocket support. Or at least the basic of it. I need to still add a little bit more to the OBS WebSockets settings. So OBS has some configurations for the WebSocket because by default it uses port 4444. I think I left out a 4 earlier. And it assumes localhost, which, you know, I hope it is. Let me try to bring up the tool dialog. There you go. So 4444, and you might want to put authentication on your OBS. So right now, as this is functioning right now, it is hard coded to 4444, and it's assuming no authentications needed. So let's make things a little bit spicier. What I'm going to do here is let me turn this off. Turn this off. The connection. I'm going to enable authentication. Now I'm going to try to connect. And I should ideally not get a successful connection. Actually, running OBS Websocket disabled is not recommended, blah, 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 blah. I guess maybe I have to let's refresh. Because we need to make sure that we get the error state if, there we go. Cannot read property length of undefined. So we're not actually truly connected. So we need to fix this code up. Because we just got an error since we couldn't connect. Cannot read property length of undefined. So I believe I had this set up before in the old code because we copied and pasted. OBS connector. Enable connection. This is where we try to pass in the password. Let's try setting this to empty string. Let's see what happens. I remember there were some finicky things about this before. But we'll tease out all the errors. So we try to do that, and it says auth has failed. So where do I report that? Auth has failed. Update button state to false. And our button state is not getting updated. So our button state is not false. Connection is disconnected. So we need to update this logic here. Let's try that. We'll toggle that. And we get that disconnected. We should, so now we have to get into the idea of showing error state. So I'm wondering if there should be an extra line below everything else. Let me try to see how this is going to work. I think I need to restructure this because I want to add in a new section that's basically, you know, error message here. And I don't think that's going to position very nicely. Yeah, because it's flex. We're doing this flex row thing. What I need to do is make two different div sections. Let's take this part, put it in here. And this new div section has the flex row information or styles, I guess is more accurate term to say. Ooh. Oh, because it's a card. The card styling is very particular, I believe. Okay. Yeah, now everything's like all like super wonky. Let's see. This section looks fine. Oh, there we go. I had to say flex row. Probably because a card itself has a flex on it. Tailwind. Tailwind is pretty nice to just like throw a class on there and just get things working. It works very well with my existing style of coding. All right, let's see if we have some sort of styling for notifying a user of an issue. We have a couple options here. I like this. I like this last one. Let's take a look at that. Yeah. Okay, we just need to add a little bit of padding, which I can do padding top. Let's do like 1, and we'll just fiddle with it. Or is it margin top? Maybe it's margin. Is that correct? Margin top, 4 pixels. And we'll just fiddle with it until we get it just right. Save. Just one more. Just one more. Yeah. So this is a new data target that we target in our little DOM. So data OBS target, namespace in it. And this is the error message. So I might end up getting rid of this little indicator here in favor, this little icon indicator thing on the left, in favor of like doing this like warning bar on the right. So let's pop over here to OBS Controller and let's update our targets. We have a new target and it is our error message target. By default, this guy will be hidden. Let's apply the hidden class on it. And this will only show up if there's an error. Now we have to make sure that we are actually accurately communicating that there has been an issue. Yeah, just getting thrown off because there's some line changes, but Prettier had done some formatting. So this isn't exactly an disconnected state. This is an error state. So let's accurately communicate that. That's going to make for a new condition here. Then our case statement, so we say an error occurred. We turn it off. But also what we want to do is we have the error. Let's make a method out of this. So display. Display an error message. Text. So we're going to remove the hidden class on our error message section. And we need to add text to it. Forget how we can do that. Content X or something like that. But I'll just throw a little debugger in here so we can actually, I can actually see what the attributes are on an HTML element. So let's call the method display error message. We should probably optionally include a message. Connection state is in an error state. So what we're doing here, I'm very tempted to like make it into a tuple, like in Elixir. We can't do pattern matching. Let's go ahead and pass in the message. And let's debug. So all of that worked. We just didn't hit the debug. There you go. So what I want to look into is this dot error message target. So this is an HTML element, if I am not mistaken. We can't modify the inner HTML because that would break the DOM. Trying to check the docs here. Inner text. What's that going to give us back? Inner text. Ah. I change you. Yes. Oh no, but that blows away the SVG. No. That's a bummer. Okay, I'm not gonna try to, having the SVG would have been nice. Not needed. I think as long as it's colored in an appropriate fashion that communicates the urgency of the issue, we should be fine. We'll go with the red text, red background instead of the yellow to communicate what we desire. This dot error message, target, inner text, text, like so. And let's let the debugger do its debuggerness. Do a refresh. Here we go. And let's click the button. Cool. I can dig it. OBS WebSocket password is incorrect. So the change I made with the password being empty needs to trigger a separate auth flow, and I think the code was breaking. So we need to reach into the OBS logic to figure out how to fix that, because there is an error for incorrect password, but there's also should be an error for, hey, you need to actually put in a password. And that's not being effectively communicated. That's happening in OBS socket auth hash. The OBS controller calls OBS connector and attempts to pass in a password. Open, disconnect, ready. We instantiate a new OBS WebSocket, this.obs. We attempt to set a password. And then here we go with trying to connect. And then we're not getting the proper debug messages right now, but we can worry about that later. So localhost port 4444 password. We promisify this password. Try to connect to the OBS Websocket port. Do that. Where exactly does it fail? So auth. So this null check, I think, is where things are going wrong. Let's utilize Ramda, because I believe Ramda has a good checker for this. I just got to remember. It's been a little bit. Not a function. Logic. Returns true if the given value type is empty. Complement condition. Default to either. Is nil. Where's is nil in here? So is nil. If it's null, undefined. Perfect. That's what I want. But that was under the type tree of things. Weird. That's not a filtering. Is nil from Ramda. So we are right here. Is nil. All right, let's see if that effectively requires a password. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. So I haven't created the dialog to put in the settings. Maybe I just do it here in this card. I could. It'd be very convenient. Let's do that. Play with that. Let's look at the component library on forms. Input sizing. You want a small one. I like this. Do I have to put it at the end? Form append, yeah. It'd be cool if there was a form prepend. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. All right. Here we go. back to the HTMLs. So what's going to happen here is going to have another div, because divs are awesome. This div is going to be a flex row. We'll stick with item center. And a margin top of 2. And we're going to have 2 input fields. One is port. One is password. We're not going to have a default, or we're not going to have a placeholder, because I'm just going to go ahead and set default to be 444. How does that look? Not too bad. It is slightly off though. Probably because of the flex row. Let's go ahead and put these in spans so that the flex styling doesn't affect each element itself. Yes. And then let's do like a flex space between or something like that. I want them to space out. You know, I don't want them to be like all up on each other. I prefer them to be like well separated. Let's look at the flex stuff. Where are you? Flexbox. Flex direction. Flex wrapperage. Just flexing in general. I guess what I can do too is have them grow. What's the styles look like for this? Okay. The flex. So if we do flex auto, let's see about just applying a flex auto. Okay. And I forget. Can I specify some sort of gap between them, or is that only grid that allows me to do that? Ooh. Weird lag for a second. All right, I think I'll just add a little bit of I'm gonna add a little bit of padding around each element. So padding, I think a padding 1 for each one will be sufficient enough to establish a hierarchy. Cool. So I need to add a type password. Let me update these labels here to be accessibility friendly. Cool. This is really coming together. I'm happy. So we have this element here. Let me go ahead and click this. Perfect. I love it. So we have these elements. Now we actually need to listen and get the values from those elements so that what do you call it? So I can grab the port and the password from it. So I can do these data actions for an on change event. So I'm pretty sure there already is one in the captions controllers. I could have deleted it though. It already existed for setting the password on the captions in the OBS controller. On password change, it would grab the target's value, set the password, on port change. So now it's simple to add in, listen for changes. Should be as simple as doing data, and then let's look at here, action. And next we say OBS hash for the function. This is for port. So we do on port change. So if I remember correctly, Stimulus.js, if you just say data action and then you just say what it should call, the controller and the function in the controller, it automatically listens to on change events. You can specify which type of event you want to listen to more specifically by doing kind of like an arrow function type of syntax, like we were doing over here with this data action. So on click, call gallery next. So by default, it should already trigger an on change. Here we go. Here's the table. So by default for A tags, it will call click. For input fields, it will call default type input. But it will, either way, I'm hoping that it'll just call that function. Call these two guys here. On password change. Let's see. I don't know what my password is. We're just gonna make it a very sophisticated password. OBS password is incorrect. That's the message I just got. Let's log. All right, no, let's not log. Let's debug. Let's see what we're actually getting. So I'm just gonna type in 1, 2, 3, 4. Whoopsie. Interesting. There we go. So we get an event coming in from me clicking. And I should be able to grab the value off of this. Let's just see. E target value. There's a password right there. I typed in 1, 2. That's the password. Let me retype this in. Click OK. So that it applies. In case it doesn't apply just by changing the input. And let me go ahead and ignore all the debug statements. The debug statement as I change. Toggle this on. Hey, that did work. I just needed to click OK for it to apply the password. Let me disconnect and butcher the password. I win. What I need to do here is in the controller, every time we try to connect, I need to clear the error message. Clear error message. We don't care about the text. Add back this. So anytime like that. Clear error message. Requires password. Put that in. Nice. Wrong password. Nice. Nice. That's what I'm talking about. Oh God. Whew. Things is coming together. All right. I like where things are going. I love this. I'm still not sold on the icons on the left. I think I only want the icon to show up if it's gonna error out. Originally, I was thinking this button. We went with switches. So now I just have to get these two set up and going. I could do the same thing with Zoom where I have a text field right here where you put in the URL. I could do that. I like that. I like that a lot. Let's do that. Instead of trying to save the URL on the back end. You know what? I think I'll still allow people to save it on the back end. Never mind. I would assume that people that are likely to do captions will probably be doing it in a reoccurring meeting, classroom, whatever it may be. So we'll go with that. Well, we'll still save it to the database, but maybe I'll have it happen at that URL bar right here to make it like really easy, really easy for you to do it. Everything's just coming together, and I'm just absolutely loving it. So good. That flashing is a little eh. But I'm okay with it. All right, folks, I got to head out. But the OBS stuff, I think, is done. I think that's pretty spot on. Need to add an error for no port. That's what they all have to quickly do right off a stream. So made some great progress on the OBS WebSocket controls. I have it wired up and receiving the caption messages. I also have the UI for inputting in port and password. Error state is properly displayed for password issues. Just need to add error messaging report issues. Of the progress. Making, and everything is looking good. All right. Feels good. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your Friday, a great weekend, and I hope to catch you later. Until next